Welcome back to the Highlight Spiel. We're back bringing you our college football special, the Big Ten edition this time. The Big Ten Conference in their preseason media days actually doesn't release a media poll like the other major conferences do, so we've decided just to give you our opinions on what we think each division of the conference will look like. In the East, me personally, I got Ohio State first, Penn State second, Michigan third, Michigan State fourth, Maryland fifth, Indiana sixth, and Rutgers at 7. Then over on the West, I got Wisconsin first, Northwestern second, Nebraska third, Iowa fourth, Minnesota fifth, Illinois sixth, and Purdue at 7 rounded out. What about you, buddy?
On my East, I got Ohio State first, Penn State second, Michigan third, Indiana fourth, Maryland fifth, Michigan State sixth, and Rutgers seventh. And on the West side, I got Wisconsin, obviously, at number 1. And then I got Nebraska at number 2, Minnesota at number 3, Iowa at number 4, Northwestern at number 5, Illinois at number 6, and Purdue rounding it up at number 7. Out of each of them conferences, which one you think is the more powerhouse?
I think definitely the East, no questions asked. I think in the West, Wisconsin's pretty much the top dog there, has been for the past, little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not Nebraska, Northwestern, well, Nebraska too, but Northwestern I think is going to be surprise people and maybe give Wisconsin a run for their money, but I think you still got Wisconsin coming out of that side.
Gonna be
But
lower
in the East, if you look, the Big Ten has 4 teams ranked in the preseason top 10
mm-hmm.
of the top 25. They
and
have
3
4
of
top
them
10
on the
teams.
East.
3 in the East side,
Yep.
exactly. The East's won, I think the past 3 Big Ten titles have all been won by the East.
And all runs to really Ohio State. Ohio State's been running the Big Ten since
Right,
as
Ohio
long as I
State's
can remember.
Ohio State's the team to beat, especially since they've got Urban Meyer. It's just took them to a whole nother level, and they've been really hard to stop.
When they had Jim Tressel, they was running through. I mean, Lloyd Carr had Michigan, A1 every now and then, but really it was running through Ohio State. The Big Ten Conference has been Ohio State's conference probably as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, it's always Ohio State is always up there. I think Penn State's getting back to the point where they're going to be up there though too, like they were 80s, 90s type. I think that Penn State's on the come up again.
I don't know. This year, if so, this year or last year. I mean, last year obviously if they do good this year, but this year it might be their only good year they gonna have other than last year. You never know.
I don't know. I think that it's a good chance. Saquon Barkley, he may leave after this year for the draft. It's a possibility. But if he stays, I think you get him back for his senior year. He'll probably be coming off 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's already coming off of 2.
They'd be losing a quarterback because they're losing
McSorley?
Yeah, they'd be losing him because he's already a senior.
Yeah, he's a senior. This will be his senior year.
So they'd have to replace quarterback play.
him, but I think Barkley's a guy you can lean on. If you're about to break in a new quarterback, Barkley's a guy you can give 25, 30 carries a game to, especially if he stays for that senior year. I mean, looking at him as a true freshman, ran for 1,067 yards. Last year, up that to 1,500, more than doubled his touchdowns. I think that he's just he's a big-time guy. He's a Heisman favorite and probably the best player in the conference.
Now, the Big Ten, they don't do Player of the Year candidates at preseason, but they do honorees, and 5 for each conference. And on the East side, they got Tegray Scales, a linebacker from Indiana, J.T. Barrett, the quarterback from Ohio State, Taquan Lewis, a defensive end, Ohio State, Saquon Barkley, who Cruz mentioned, running back from Penn State, also, and Trace McSorley, the quarterback he mentioned from Penn State.
Then on the west side of things, you got Josie Jewell, the linebacker at Iowa, the senior. Goodwin Igwebuikwe, the safety over at Northwestern. Justin Jackson, the running back at Northwestern. Jack Cheeky, the linebacker at Wisconsin. And Troy Fumagalli, the tight end over there at Wisconsin.
Now, out of all them players, who would you say is the early favorite to win the Big Ten Player of the Year?
Out of those players, I think that the favorites for the Big Ten Player of the Year, I think, are J.T. Barrett and Barkley, obviously. And then you can maybe throw McSorley in there. A sleeper not mentioned in those players, though, Northwestern quarterback Clayton Thorson. A lot of people talk that he could be a top quarterback prospect coming out into the draft next year, maybe a first-round pick. Last season, 59% completion, 3,182 yards, 22 touchdowns versus only 9 picks. Great season. He's probably going to improve on that this year. And he's got that NFL frame, got that NFL, what they're looking for, and can be a big quarterback and could lead Northwestern to a big year, especially if they have a big year, possibly win that West Division even.
Yep.
Who knows what the sky is for this guy.
Yeah. So you will, all them, which one is your only favorite to win?
For me, it's between Barrett and Barkley. I'm not a big JT Barrett fan, as I'm sure you guys have heard in the debut video and other things. I just, I like him. He's a good player, solid athlete, just not sold on his arm. But, look at his stats. Last season, 845 rush yards, 2,555 pass yards, 24 TDs versus only 7 picks. Great ratio. I think he had 9 or 10 rushing touchdowns. But to me, I like Barkley. Barkley's a favorite. I think he's a Heisman candidate. I think he's going to run for over 1,500 yards. I think Penn State may shock some people and take on Ohio State in that division. They kind of got robbed out of the playoffs last year after winning the Big Ten. And Penn State, I think, is a team that may come out of this conference. It's hard to say. Ohio State's obviously the favorite, but Penn State is kind of being slept on a little bit, I do believe.
Yeah, I'm going to go with JT Barrett as my early player of the year. I mean, Ohio State's dominant in and year out. They reloaded quarterback, and he's been in the system for multiple years, so it's his to lose, really.
Yeah, been in the system, and that Urban Meyer system, you can always it produces good numbers always, regardless. That's one thing you can rely on. I mean, he's going to have the numbers. He will. He's going to have a good season as long as he stays healthy. I like Barkley better. I think Barkley's better NFL talent, and just, I don't know, I'm not a big JT Barrett fan, I guess. Some guys you don't like, and I'm not saying I don't like him necessarily, but just never been, really high on him.
Yeah. There's 4 teams in the top 25 in the coaches poll.
Yeah, they're also all ranked in the top 10 there.
Yeah.
You got Ohio State 2nd.
Penn State 6th.
Michigan 9th.
And Wisconsin at 10.
So that's your top 4 teams in the conference, 3 in the East, and then Wisconsin in the West side.
And that's the first time that's happened since 1999.
Right, first time they've had 4 top 10 teams since 1999. So, I mean, the Big Ten's a great conference at the top. But then I think a thing that you have to look at and look into is the conference is kind of top-heavy, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, those 4 teams are the only 4 teams ranked in the top 25 in the conference.
And only one other team, I think, in the whole conference got votes to be in the top 25, if I'm not mistaken. So they're really, really top-heavy, and the bottom half just they don't have that much talent. It isn't there.
I think that's why you don't hear a lot of talk about the Big Ten as one of the better conferences in college football with the ACC and the SEC.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously at the top they have the teams, they've got the talent. But I think overall throughout the conference they don't have the competition team from top to bottom that the ACC and SEC have in and year out. That's not to say that one of these teams that's not ranked now may end up ranked in the season, but consistently these 4 teams are the ones that do it, and the other ones may one year and then may have a few bad years.
One good year, like you said, take 1 step forward, 5 steps back.
Right, it's hard to tell, and it varies with what team does that. Then I think you look at some of the biggest conference matchups are obviously between these teams that are these 4 teams that are ranked in the preseason top 10.
You got Michigan, Penn State on October 21st.
That'll be a good matchup right there. Michigan got Penn State last year early in the season. Beat them pretty bad. I think it was like 39 points. It was 30-something. Penn State's one of the only 3 losses on the year. Of course, they lost to Pitt in a shootout a couple weeks before that, before they really caught their stride, and then they went on to lose to USC in the Rose Bowl in another shootout by 3. So 2 losses by 3 points, and then a big-time loss to Michigan. It's in Happy Valley. I think Penn State will be looking to redeem and avenge that loss, especially the way they took it by 30-some points. And hopefully they'll bounce back and really maybe they'll put a shellacking on Michigan this time, maybe.
And when I think it's maybe the biggest game in the Eastern Conference of the Big Ten is Penn State at Ohio State on October 28th.
Yep.
I think the
winner
next
of that week. That's the tough thing. Yeah. Penn State back-to-back weeks they play Michigan. At least they do get Michigan at home, but then they got to go right on the road to Columbus and play Ohio State.
And that, in my opinion, is going to be the deciding factor of who wins the Eastern.
So. In your mind, if Penn State beats Michigan and then loses to Ohio State, they haven't really helped themselves?
Nope, because you lost to the best team in the division.
Right, the one that you need to beat.
I mean, if you lose to Michigan, all right, that's cool. But if you beat the most dominant one in Ohio State, you made yourself look better.
I think so too.
Especially, and it's on the road too.
And then you got to look at Michigan at Wisconsin on November 18th. Another big matchup, maybe slept-on team, Wisconsin. A lot of people know that they're the favorite in the West, but they don't think that they're on the same level as the Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio States. What's your opinion? Do you think that they are on that level, or do you think that they're kind of a tier below?
Just a tier below. They haven't really. I mean, they're probably
tight end.
Yeah, and
for Magali.
And then, but you gotta have more than. You gotta have a good quarterback. You gotta have a good running back. You gotta have a good core receiver. You can't just have a good tight end and excuse my language, shitty quarterbacks.
Right, I agree.
And the last game of the season, one of the biggest rivalries in college football, you got Michigan and Ohio State on November 25th.
Last week of the season there in Ann Arbor. I think that'll be a hell of a matchup. It always is.
And
it's going to be hard fought. Harbaugh versus Meyer. We love to see it. It's great. Two of the great coaches in college football.
And you never know. That might be. I maybe spoke too soon, saying Penn State, Ohio State might be it. That might be the matchup.
Yeah, the matchup that decides who goes to the Big Ten
Michigan beat
championship
Penn
game.
State and Ohio State both beat Penn State.
The way that it looks with all three of these teams are good. They could potentially beat up on each other, and one of them that loses to another one early may sneak their way into the championship game because of other matchups late. The week before last, you got Michigan at Wisconsin. Maybe Michigan's leading, Wisconsin slips them up, and so then Ohio State's leading, but then Michigan knocks out Ohio State the next week, and Penn State's back in the Big Ten championship game.
That's what I like about them four teams. It could go either way between all four of them when they all play because they all
right. It's hard to say who's going to be there.
Yeah.
It is. It's tough to say. Some sleeper teams in the conference. Who are some sleeper teams for you?
I say Nebraska and Minnesota, man. Nebraska and Minnesota.
I like that. Those not bad picks.
What about you?
Me personally, I think Michigan State. They usually have a solid team. They had a down year last year.
They had a real bad year.
3-9, I think, was the record.
Yeah.
Struggled, but I see them bouncing back in a big way. Maybe upsetting somebody. Maybe they get Michigan. Somebody. Michigan. That's a rivalry. Anything can happen in a rivalry game.
Yeah.
You can't rule out. Records don't really matter.
I think they might have beat Michigan last year off that block punt, or the year before. I don't know which year. I can't remember.
Well, either way, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even though 3-9 last year, they could have beat them. You know what I'm saying? Records don't matter in the rivalry. You really don't, because it's intense.
I mean, records don't matter.
And then Northwestern. I talked about Clayton Thorson earlier. The running back Justin Jackson. They got the great team there. They're on the rise.
They went 7-6 last year. You think they're gonna do better?
Oh, better than 7-6? Yeah, I think 8-9 wins. If they're having a great year, they can maybe get to that 10. But I think 8 or 9 wins.
Bold. Is that your bold prediction?
My bold prediction. If I wanted to go real bold with it, I would say that they'd come out of the West over Wisconsin, but I'm not going to take it to that level. I think that they're going to give Wisconsin a run for the money. I think they'll be right there with them, but Wisconsin's going to beat them, and it's going to give them the head-to-head, and they're going to get
my bold prediction of this segment.
Yeah, the Big Ten
Rutgers will beat Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State.
Rutgers.
Yes, Rutgers will win one of them three.
I like that. I think that Maryland's a team that maybe could shock some people.
Rutgers didn't win no conference games last year. That's why they're due for one this year.
You're right. Rutgers really struggling right now. They need to pick it up. Some of these second-year coaches in the league that need to step their game up a little bit, basically.
Yeah, Lovie Smith from Illinois, man, he went 3-9 last year. You think he can improve, or you think he's going to have a worse record?
Lovie Smith's a guy that I think is a great coach. Coming from the NFL ranks, led the Bears to the Super Bowl where they lost to the Colts.
Yep.
I think that he can really do something in Illinois. I think he's a guy you just got to give more time to. 3-9 in his first year. I think you may see that improve this year. I don't know if they'll be above 500, but I don't see why they couldn't have 5-6 wins.
They really haven't been all that nice since they had Juice Williams as their quarterback.
Yeah, they need to get back to those type of days. DJ Durkin at Maryland. I mentioned Maryland as a team that could maybe shock some people. 6-7, they were right there on that threshold.
Right there below
they may
500.
Cross that. I think that they could cross that threshold and get above 500 this season.
I think maybe 8-6.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'll take it 6 or 7. Maybe right at 500 or one better.
Like I mentioned earlier, Chris Ash from Rutgers. He went 2-10, but like I said, they're due for a conference win this year. They're gonna pull a big upset. Be watching for them.
Out of all of these three coaches, do you see none of them had winning records in their first year. Do you see any of them changing that? And if so, which ones, or if any?
Yeah, I see at least one changing it, and that'd be DJ Durkin, just for the fact that he was one game below 500 last year. So he probably only lost maybe a couple of them games by close points. You get it in the ball game, then you win them games.
I agree with that. I think that it's a game of inches. You never know what's going to happen. And, one game is the difference between, recovering a fumble or having a few turnovers, or limiting a few turnovers, rather. So I think that Maryland and DJ Durkin's got the best chance to have the winning record in year 2 out of the first-year head coaches from last season. Speaking of first-year head coaches, got a big one taken over there at Minnesota. Minnesota's a team that you liked as a sleeper for the conference. I think that is that
reasons.
I was about to ask, is that one of the reasons?
Because he brought one
PJ Fleck is coming, and he's going to trying to energize them. Last season at Western Michigan, they had a hell of a year.
Averaged
went
481
undefeated,
yards a game.
481 yards a game offense. Went undefeated all the way into the bowl game when they lost. But was it 24-16 to Wisconsin, actually, in the Rose Bowl. So Wisconsin's a solid team. Their defense is great. They held them to 16 points. But other than that, their offense ran all over everybody.
And their defense only allowed 353 yards a game too, so that's real good too.
And PJ Fleck's a big reason why. He's a young coach, brings a lot of energy to the sidelines. His motto, row the boat, is real big with the players. They like his attitude. They like the way he interacts with them.
Well, the quarterback he had last year, 70% completion percentage, over 3,500 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So maybe
those are incredible numbers.
One of Minnesota's quarterbacks to do something like that in this type of offense.
Right, you have a new quarterback taking over Minnesota after Leidner's graduated after, I think, 2 or 3 years as a starter there. So there'll be a new quarterback taking over. He'll get to mold him and teach him his offense, which I think will be good. And, Minnesota may, I don't know if it will be this year necessarily,
but a couple years.
I think give PJ Fleck 2-3 years max, and he'll have that program kicking at a new level that we haven't seen in a while. Minnesota may be a team on the rise to look out for. PJ Fleck's a guy that could possibly do it. So let's talk predictions here. Wrapping up this Big Ten preview of the College Football Preview Special, brought to you by the Highlight Spiel, a product of Trio 4 Productions. What do you think?
Well, coming out of the West, you really can't go against Wisconsin, but I'm going to go bold, and I'm going to go Minnesota's coming out the West.
Wow.
Minnesota, yep.
Wow.
And then out the East, Ohio State, Urban Meyer. So that's my Big Ten title game.
Ohio State and Minnesota.
And Ohio State's coming away with it again. You'll see them in the playoffs.
Ohio State is your Big Ten champion, and you're going with playoff prediction as well. They're going to be in that top 4, you think?
Yeah. Urban Meyer, they was in there last year. Granted, they got their asses whipped, but they've been there the past, 3 years?
So early prediction, Ohio State in the college football playoff. I had an early prediction on the ACC show of Florida State doing that, so 2 early predictions here. We'll have to look back on these at the end of the season, and maybe one of us will eat crow or both,
And maybe we'll
I'm
both
sure
be right.
Could both be right. I'm sure we both would love for the other one to be wrong, though. Going predictions for me here, coming out of the East. Ohio State, I think, is the favorite. It's hard to argue with them, but I love Penn State, man.
I knew that was
going Penn State here.
Just like
Saquon
an ACC
Barkley,
special. I knew Florida State was coming.
Hey, we don't see eye to eye on a lot of picks here. It's just the way it is.
Crazy pick. Mine's a good pick. His off the wall.
Now, Saquon Barkley, best running back in the conference. Probably the best running back in college football. Trace McSorley, great quarterback. They have a great defense. James Franklin is doing an awesome job with that program. Really has them cooking.
Turned it around.
I'm going with Penn State coming out of the East. And then in the West, I think you got to go Wisconsin. You can't really go against them.
Bold picks
great
in that.
Defense, good tight end. They're going to be solid. They're going to hold the whole teams, and they're just going to score as much as they need to just to get the win.
Surprised
whole teams on defense.
Northwestern. I mean, you've been
I like Northwestern.
Been riding them all show.
I like Northwestern. I think that they're going to give them a run for the money, but Wisconsin's coming out. And so matching up in the Big Ten championship game, Wisconsin and Penn State. A great matchup. I think you see a defensive type of ball game there.
Low
scoring, but I think Penn State's going to be too much with Saquon Barkley running. I think he's going to take a toll on that defense, wear him down after a while. And you're going to see Saquon Barkley and Penn State walk away as Big Ten champions.
I got Ohio State, you got Penn State. That's 2 different.
Agree to disagree here on the Highlight Spiel.
I had Clemson, he had Florida State. That's, maybe next Big 12 they're going to have somebody there different than me.
Big 12 preview will be coming up next. Thank you for tuning in to the Highlight Spiel's College Football Preview Special Big Ten Edition. Tune in for the Big 12 edition coming soon. Thank you, guys. I'm Jordan.
I'm Fletch.
We'll see you next time.